What's going on, you guys? I don't know why, but I'm somewhat nervous about doing this, and I really don't know why, because I've shared this story maybe 100,000 times. And, from speaking at schools to meeting people in public places, at the mall, wherever, I've shared this story so many times, and for some reason, I don't know, it's a special feeling that I have when I'm sharing it with you guys. And with that being said, I really appreciate when you guys comment and react to these videos. Let me know, how these videos make you feel. And I know a lot of you guys are gonna say, welcome back, AJ, because I kind of did go on hiatus for about a month or so on YouTube. But if you've been following me on Instagram, I've been posting like crazy on Instagram. And the reason why I've been able to stick with that is because Instagram is, well, it's instant. It doesn't require a lot of time. Whereas a YouTube video, I put in hours, maybe even days to put a video together for you guys. So this is the first video in a while because I've just been taking care of my nonprofit, of course, my health and training and work, really just trying to keep my life on track. But I have not, and I never will forget about my amazing YouTube audiences. So I'm really excited to finally be able to post something. And I promise you guys, I'm going to work on getting a schedule for my YouTube channel as soon as I can. Like I said, other things must take priority. With that being said, pull up a chair, get a bucket of popcorn, candy, some soda, and a friend, because it's story time. I'm going to take you guys way back to 2012, so like 4 years ago. 4 years ago is when I first discovered my heart symptoms. I ran out of this house. I went out for a run, and not far from my mailbox, I began to feel like I was breathing through a sponge, or my lungs had turned into sponges. Like, a sponge is right on my face, and you can breathe through a sponge, but it's pretty difficult. That's like exactly how it felt. That's what I equate this feeling of breathlessness to. I knew right away that that wasn't what I was. That was just abnormal for me, because I've been spending so much time lifting and running and doing whatever to build my physique. And this was just weird for me. So I called my doctor, and he brought me in, and he noticed some abnormal heart rhythms. So he linked me up to this I forgot what it's called, like an EKG machine. Basically, it keeps track of your heart rhythm, and it prints out a very long report of your heart activity over the course of 24 hours. So I had this little machine attached to me, tracking my heart for 24 hours. I worked out with it, went to bed with it, and woke up the next day and went to see my doctor to give him what the device had recorded. He noticed that there were some abnormal rhythms on there, and he said, I'm going to refer you to a cardiologist. So I met with this cardiologist, who is still my cardiologist to this day. I met with him for the first time maybe a week or two after meeting with my physician, and he quickly diagnosed me with a viral myocarditis, which is the mild inflammation of the cardiac tissue, or the heart tissue, the heart muscle. And my heart pumping efficiency had dropped, but not by much, not enough to raise any red flags or any cause for concern. So they put me on 2 medications, an ACE inhibitor and a beta blocker, and in summary, those medications were meant to protect my heart from further damage. So I'm on these 2 medications for the next couple of years, and we're going to fast forward to Christmas of 2014. So all that time in between, I have been working out. I finished school, graduated, and I won my pro card as a professional fitness model. And the point I'm trying to make is that life was normal, seemed completely normal. Of course, time and time again, I would experience these random symptoms that I've had, shortness of breath, and I would just need to take a moment, but really nothing too drastic. So it wasn't until around Christmas, winter 2014, where I had my first incident. I just came back from work and I was not feeling right. There was a problem with my car and I was just kind of a little stressed and a little bit overtired. And I began to feel these flu-like symptoms come on, and it didn't feel different from being sick at any other time in my life, but what really struck me as weird is the fact that these symptoms seem to have come out of nowhere. I mean, I went from healthy to just a mess. I was lightheaded, I felt cold, I had very, very intense chills, and I was coughing. So on my way home, I'm freezing. I have my heat blasting in my car, and I'm doing everything to stay warm, and I'm just trembling because I just don't know I have these really intense chills, and I'm like, okay, I definitely have like the flu, and I need to get home and rest. I already called out of work the next day, and when I got home, I struggled to get up the stairs to my bedroom, and I bundled up into my blanket, sat on my bed, and took my space heater and placed it directly in front of me. And even then, I was still trembling uncontrollably. I continued to cough more and more, and eventually I started hemorrhaging blood out of my mouth. And to give you an idea of like what that was, I wasn't coughing up little specks of blood. Like, I would just open my mouth and blood would pour out. And I'm sorry that I didn't, give a disclaimer to, the graphic content that this is going to contain, but now you were warned, but I'm going to continue the story anyway. So I am feeling like death. I can't breathe. I can't even talk because I'm just coughing and gagging. And luckily for me, my brother showed up, and he said, "Andrew, I think this has to do with your heart condition, so we should go to the ER." And in my mind, I'm saying, yeah, we'll go to the ER, but I don't think it has anything to do with my heart condition. I mean, all I do is work out, right? So my brother, being the savior that he is, took me to the hospital and had me admitted to the ER. And by now I am, in a hospital bed in the ER, and I'm kind of in and out of consciousness. I kind of didn't know where I was at times. And my awareness in space was, coming and going. And that's because I had a fever ranging from 105 to 106. And if you're familiar with how high that is, it's dangerously high. Usually you call out of work when you have a fever of 102 or 103, even 101. I was 105 to 106, and I literally felt like I was dying. Because essentially I was. I was in the hospital for about 4 days, and while I was there, they concluded that I had pneumonia-like symptoms. Now, they did not say that I definitely had pneumonia. It was pneumonia-like symptoms because the imaging that they took of my lungs came back with the image of fluid or infection on my lungs. So they ruled it as pneumonia-like symptoms. So I was there for 4 days and I was discharged, and I was more anxious to celebrate Christmas and the New Year's. I did not want to be in the hospital for the holidays. So I was happy that I was out and I got to celebrate Christmas and New Year's. So let's fast forward to springtime. I would say April. I want to say late April. Yeah, it was about late April, where I began feeling these same symptoms at home again. I was short of breath, and I was a bit lightheaded. Not as bad as the first incident, but it was something that I knew needed to be taken care of. So I told my mom, "You need to take me to the ER," and she asked if I was sure, and I was like, "I am definitely sure." Got to the ER, and I don't remember exactly what happened when I got there, but they admitted me again, and this time I was in the ICU for 2 weeks. So while I was there, they quickly came to the conclusion that I was entering heart failure, and they wanted to test me for various diseases. I mean, I've been tested for different diseases in the past because of my symptoms. So I've been tested for HIV, Lyme disease. I mean, the list goes on, you guys. It's just a bunch of tests that they want to try to hone in and see if that was anything that was related to my heart disease. So while I was in the ICU, they put me under a few tests to test for cancers, including Hodgkin's lymphoma and leukemia. Hodgkin's lymphoma, they take a biopsy of one of your lymph nodes, send it into the lab, and call it a day. Well, they don't really call it a day. The test came back negative. When they test for leukemia, they have to do a bone marrow biopsy. And so, with that being said, they obviously have to get into your bone and take some of the tissue out of your bone. This was probably the most physically painful experience of my life. I was laying on my back and they had to enter my lower back, I believe my pelvis, with a very large needle and a screw-like tool to kind of grind into the bone. And when they extract the bone marrow, that was the part that hurt. And even talking about it now makes me sort of woozy, but at the time, my nurse was holding my hand, and I think I was crushing her hand, and my ears were turning white. I was in and out of consciousness. I was crying. I was a mess, and I just could not take the pain. It's a very short procedure, but it's very, very, very intense. The recovery was actually very easy, but the test itself is excruciating. So I was there for 2 weeks, basically waiting to find out if I had leukemia. And that was a terrible waiting period, because I was basically waiting to figure out if I had a very, very deadly cancer. By the graces of God in the universe, that test came back negative. The test came back negative and I was discharged. Well, I wasn't discharged right away, but because my heart condition had worsened, I was implanted with a defibrillator, an ICD, which stands for an implantable cardioverter defibrillator. And a defibrillator, I'm sure you all have seen what a defibrillator is if you've seen on TV or movies where they have the two paddles that they put on an unconscious person's chest. They say clear, and they send a huge amount of electricity through their body to jumpstart, well, not through their body, but into their heart to jumpstart their heart back to life. I have mine implanted on my upper left chest. If you can see that, it's sticking right through my skin, and you can see the scar to where they made the pocket to implant it. That's been in there for coming up on it's been in there for over a year, and it's been essentially keeping me alive. It paces my heart back to a normal sinus rhythm, a normal beating rhythm, when it detects that it's going into a VTach or any abnormal rhythm. I can probably count on my hands and my feet the amount of times that this thing has probably saved me from a life-threatening arrhythmia, because I have, felt my heart race at times, and all of a sudden it just kind of pauses and goes back into a normal rhythm. And I know that was the defibrillator that was taking care of that for me, and I'm incredibly thankful that they, got me to have this implanted. But the story doesn't end there. So I was discharged right before Mother's Day, and I was out for about a week, and one of the first things I did was I had just gotten a new car that had been replaced because my car was actually totaled in February by a drunk driver, February of 2015. And that's just, I'm mentioning that because that was just another thing that was, depressing me. I had lost my car. I had lost the ability to work out. I was tired all the time. I had to quit my job, and I was just too sick to almost do anything. And I found myself in my room days on end. I mean, literally I would not leave my room for days on end. I had a terrible, horrible diet. a diet so bad that all you guys that have been following me on my fitness journey would slap me for this, but it was terrible. I dreaded going down the stairs because that meant that I had to come up the stairs, and that was a chore. That was extremely hard for me, you guys. It was like a very intense, it was going up the stairs once felt like running a marathon. Even getting dressed, you guys, I couldn't even get dressed without being out of breath. It would take me like 20 minutes to get, just to get basic clothes on, a t-shirt and shorts. It was that bad, you guys. Standing up for more than a minute, I could already feel my heart starting to work in overtime just to support me standing. Anyway, back to the story. I was discharged from the hospital after the 2-week stay and after having this thing implanted. I shouldn't just call it a thing. This is an ICD and it's saved my life. I know it has. So I'm trying to remember where I was. I was discharged shortly before Mother's Day. And of course my mom, being the wonderful mom she is, she's extremely concerned and she's doing her absolute best to make sure that things are normal for me. Although I was enjoying being able to see my friends on the outside of the hospital, I knew I was still really, really sick. I knew that there was still something wrong and something had to be done. It wasn't long till I started having these really bad stomach pains, which I thought was a GI issue, gastrointestinal, and I felt like I just had just a sharp pain in one side, so I would be limping, not limping, but I would be hanging to one side because it just hurt so bad to stand straight up. And again, I'm tired, and this was happening for a few days. I saw several specialists within that few days, and none of them were able to fix the problem right away. It wasn't until my mom called my physician and my cardiologist and said he's having very bad stomach pains, and they instructed me to weigh myself. I ended up gaining 7 to 8 pounds in a few days, and they said that I needed to go into the hospital right now. Not tomorrow, not in a few hours. Don't gather anything, don't get stuff together. I mean, get in the car and go. So that's what we did. We went to Hartford Hospital, and I got there, and first the waiting time was very long. I was there to get in was a couple of hours, but it's a busy hospital, so that's expected. At the time I was a little irritable because I just didn't feel like moving. And it turns out that I had edema, which is fluid retention caused by heart failure. And this was something that I had already been experiencing, but the edema, the fluid retention, was just in my lungs before. It had now spread from my lungs, not only my lungs, but to my liver as well, which meant that my heart failure has gotten much worse. So they diuresed me. I end up peeing a lot. To be clear, I ended up peeing 4 liters that night. And to give you an idea, think of those big 2-liter bottles of soda that you see at the grocery store or at the gas station. I filled 2 of those in one night. That's a lot of piss. But when they diuresed me, I felt great. I felt so much better, and I was like, I feel so much better. I mean, they'll probably keep me here for maybe a day or 2 just to see how I'm doing, but I feel great. I'm ready to go home. That wasn't the case for me. Because my heart was failing and had gotten worse, they specified that I was in end-stage heart failure. And that meant that this was pretty much it. The doctor, I will never forget this, the doctor said, if you hadn't come in and had admitted yourself to the hospital today, it would have been a few days later where you would have gotten tired, more tired. I would have slept even more and more until I would fall asleep and not wake up. And he meant like in a matter of days, 3 to 5 days. And I was in total shock that I was that close to death. But that couldn't prepare me for what was coming next. He said, Andrew, because of your heart condition, we need to seek advanced therapy, which in layman's terms means you need a heart transplant. And that was like being hit by a truck. But at the same time, I felt sort of relieved. Don't get me wrong, I was incredibly scared. But I felt sort of relieved because I felt like that I knew that's what needed to happen. Because I was just so sick. I knew that I was incredibly sick. So I was scared and relieved at the same time. And if you can imagine what that's like, it's like you're fighting, it's a tug of war of emotions and you're the rope. So that was some pretty big news, and I was kind of dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say, and I kind of just said, I shook my head and said, okay. And they admitted me. And I didn't know much about organ iron tissue donation, and I went into the ICU, and they brought me up to my room, which is also known as the penthouse, but that's another story. They brought me up to my room, which would be my room for the next 4 months. And I'm sitting here thinking that I would be able to get my transplant in the next, 2 weeks. And I had no idea what I was in store for. I went into that room and I never left for 4 months. And I kind of didn't expect that. I didn't know that. They didn't say that I was going to be there for that long, because being on a transplant list, you don't know when your transplant is going to come. But even before I could even be put on the list, I had to undergo a series of so many tests, more tests, right? And these are the tests that qualify you to be put on the heart transplant waiting list, because even if you have end-stage heart failure and you need a transplant, you still have to have maintained a certain level of health to be considered to be put on the list. So there are people out there who are super sick, who are so sick that they can't even be put on the heart transplant list because their bodies wouldn't be able to handle such an invasive operation. Luckily for me, and I think this is just crazy, I didn't realize that all this time I had been putting in at the gym, all the dieting that I've been doing, was more than just for a pro card. It was for this. I truly believe that I found my passion for health and fitness because the universe knew that I was going to go through this test. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. Anyway, I am undergoing all these tests, and let me tell you, they test everything, you guys. They test you from your head down to your toenails. They test your bone density, they test your skin, they test your hair. I believe they looked at my teeth. They did and I'm laughing because, so they did an endoscopy and a what's the other one where they go up your butt? I can't believe I'm forgetting the word. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on this word. I'll get it. But basically they're checking your GI tract for internal bleeds or anything of that sort. So they went through my mouth and through my butt, and I call that a double dip. Or actually that's like known in the medical world as a double dip. So they double dipped me. Luckily I was out for that. And that was actually one of the last tests that they did. But, oh my God, they had to give you the workup for it is terrible because they have to give you the fluids that make you, shit. They give you the fluids that make you poop. It was awful too because it doesn't matter what you mixed it with, it did not taste good. Like they had these powders that you can mix it with, and the powder is just it was like a feeble attempt to make it taste good. And I had it down like damn near a gallon of this stuff, this stuff to make you freaking crap water eventually. And Oh God, it was terrible. That was probably the second worst part about being on the transplant list, is that one test that I can't, and I'm gonna Google it right now because it's bothering me. What is the other one? Oh my God, colonoscopy. Colonoscopy. Your colon. That's what it was. Anyway, I passed these tests with flying colors. I'm healthy. With, aside from my heart condition, I'm healthy. So now I wait. I wait and wait and wait and wait, and I eventually break the news to the public on social media that I am in the hospital awaiting a heart transplant, and I will never forget the windfall of support and prayers that I got from that first post. I felt very special that there were so many people who actually that it touched, that I was not in the best situation. And when it comes to not being in the best situation, yeah, my situation was bad, but it was nowhere near what other people have to go through. And there are people out there who are in far worse condition than I am, who can't even afford to get into the hospital like I was, without hesitation. And that was my biggest motivation to creating awareness for organ failure and organ eye and tissue donation. And that's where I founded the Hearts at Large Foundation, from my hospital bed. I mean, it started with social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, just to gain support. But I eventually created a GoFundMe, and it ended up raising almost $2,000 in a day and almost $5,000 in 2.5 weeks. It got the attention of GoFundMe, who sent me a big check to fill out, which I kind of haven't done yet, so maybe I should do that. It got the attention of the local media, and I actually had a very special visitor. His name was Colby, and I'll try to remember to put the link into the video where you guys can learn a little bit about him. He's in the video with me in the ICU, and he came and met with me, and it was very special because he was also in the same unit I was when he was waiting for his transplant, and gratefully he got his transplant, and this was years ago. It was actually around the same time that I first discovered my heart symptoms. He got his transplant around the same time I started feeling the symptoms of my heart. So time is going by. I continue working with Hearts at Large. My family and friends were able to come visit whenever they wanted, and I was incredibly grateful for not only the fact that they were able to come and visit me, but I was able to interact with them, because you guys, people in the cardiac ICU unit usually are in very bad condition and are unable to even speak. They're either sedated or just unconscious because they're too sick. I remember seeing this one family crowded outside of a room, and I was doing my routine ambulating, which is just walking. They always tell me, AJ, you gotta ambulate. You gotta walk to prevent total atrophy of your muscles. So you need to maintain some sort of level of fitness in there, and mine was walking. I tried, doing push-ups, but, I'm going to stay on topic. Anyway, I do vividly recall a family standing outside of a room because their loved one passed away from heart failure. And this was, at a time where I wasn't really fazed by it, but it was towards the end of the night, and it was one of the last things I saw. And I went to bed, and I woke up, you guys, and I swear to God, the person that had passed away in that room was standing in front of my bed, and it scared the living daylights out of me. I have curtains in my room, curtains that block out the windows that look outside of my room. Like the way to get into my room, there's a sliding glass door surrounded by just wall to ceiling windows. So it was like being in a glass cage almost. But I had curtains that I could pull over those windows, and then I also had curtains on the side of my bed because I just wanted that because it was cool. I was there for long enough, and I wanted to live in a cocoon, so that's what I did. And I sometimes would put my TV screen right there, so it was like being in a movie theater. But you guys, I woke up in this dream, and I don't even know if it was a dream or not, but there was a shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed, and I recall it saying, "You're going to be okay." And I don't know, I can't even describe the voice to you. It's like I heard it, but I didn't hear it. And I felt like that was the person that had just passed away in that room. And it scared me when I woke up, but then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, was that shadowy figure right? And it was very surreal. A lot happened in the ICU. Although I wasn't able to do much, a lot still happened. I made amazing friends with the nurses and doctors. We stay in touch, and I visit them, to this day. But it was just it's really hard to describe, to pick one word to describe what life in the ICU is like. But moving on, so again, working on Hearts at Large, trying to make Hearts at Large a success, reading up on what it takes to, have a startup. And this is when I discovered my true entrepreneurial spirit and decided that I was going to go back to school for business. And it just so happens that I just finished my essay for graduate school on my computer right here tonight, so I'm really excited. But I started to get sick again. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. I wasn't like, passing out. I wasn't, having, going into cardiac arrest or anything. And I'm very grateful that it was just small symptoms and it wasn't something big. But I did continue to have small VTACs, and eventually I started retaining fluid, despite the fact that I was on diuretics the whole time. I was on drugs that were pro-arrhythmatic, milrinone and dobutamine. Helped my heart pump strongly, but it does put you at risk for abnormal heart rhythms. And I was having more of those by the day, and finally I had one night where I had just a little bit of shortness of breath because of fluid retention in my lungs. And I told my nurse, and they confirmed that I did. They diuresed me, and I said, I feel great. I went to bed, woke up the next day, everything was normal. Then the following day, I woke up, and the first thing that happened was I was actually woken up by one of my doctors who came in, and right away I could sense that what they had to tell me wasn't good. And as she began telling me what had to happen, I started, breathing kind of like getting ready, and she said, "You're aware that, it's either nothing or the transplant if you don't go with this option." And the option was to have a VAD implanted in me. A VAD, VAD, stands for ventricular assist device. In this particular situation, an LVAD, a left ventricular assist device, which I was well aware of before. I knew exactly what it was, and they tell you about this device before, shortly after you're put on the transplant waiting list, because this device is commonly used as a bridge to transplant, to bridge people to transplant, so they're able to live longer and still receive a transplant. Being young, being still somewhat, I'm always drawing blanks on words. Just from being young, I felt like I was still somewhat invincible, even though I'm sitting in a hospital bed. And this whole time I'm thinking, I'm never going to need that device. And boy, was I wrong. She had to say that, and like I'm messing up my words because even thinking back to this was kind of hard, but she had to say the next thing we have to do is, give you the VAD. And I was in total shock for like 10 minutes. And I wasn't ready. I definitely had, shed my fair share of tears, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just praying that, by the grace of God, that a transplant would somehow just pop up right now. And I was just praying and praying, just hoping that, this didn't have to happen, that maybe there was a mistake, or maybe my condition right then and there improved and they didn't have to do it. I wasn't, unfortunately that wasn't what happened. Or should I say fortunately. And it was all within a few hours, you guys. It wasn't like we're going to VAD you next week or this Friday. It went from we're going to try to have this done sometime tomorrow. Then it went to we're going to try to put this done in tonight. And then finally she came back and said, Andrew, we need to have this done right away, like in the next couple of hours. So they called my parents, told them the news, and they were here in no time. And I guess by now I had to start telling myself that I'm a badass. Like, as they're doing these tests, getting me prepped for surgery, I was like, Andrew, you're a fucking badass. You're a badass. You're about to go do this, and you're gonna wake up and you're gonna take on the world with ease. They got me prepped for surgery. They wheeled me down in my bed to the operating room. One of my favorite nurses was with me at the time, and she held my hand the whole time. And I remember looking at her on the operating table, holding her hand, and I don't even remember them putting any drugs in me or putting a mask on me for the anesthesia. The last thing I remember was just how cold the room was. And then I woke up in a recovery in an ICU room, a floor below where I was staying originally. And I woke up and I had no idea what was going on. I thought I had died. But they had a breathing tube down my throat, so I was unable to speak. I had to use my hands. I remember trying to tell my nurse that I was really, really hot. And so I started doing this. And and she was like, yeah, good. And I was just like, no, bad. I'm really hot. I'm burning up. Take this blanket. They had like 6 blankets on me. I'm like, is this necessary? So she finally figured out 2 blankets off me, and I'm like, oh, thank God. And my legs were really itchy because they have these like inflatable pumps on your legs to keep blood flowing. And I'm like, please take these off right now. And they're like, no, we need to get the blood flowing. And I'm like, I feel my blood flowing. I'm gonna be fine. Take them off before I cut them off. So I'm in recovery for this device, and the implantation of this device required open heart surgery. And that's what left me with this wicked scar, and that's where they're going to cut me again once I receive my heart transplant. And I'm not going to say if I receive my heart transplant, when I receive my heart transplant. There is no if. It's going to happen. The device that they put in, you can't see the actual device, but it's in the shape of a centrifugal pump. It's about the size of a golf ball. It can sit in your hand, in the palm of your hand. And if you know what a turbocharger in a car looks like, that's basically what it is. It's a turbocharger for my heart. So essentially, I'm now turbocharged, which makes me better than all of you. Just joking. Anyway, the device is controlled by this module right here, and is powered by 2 batteries, or 2 sources of power at all times. And that cord that you see, not the black one, but the clearish looking one, that runs into my abdomen. Here, I'll show you guys. That line, which is called a drive line, runs into my abdomen. It goes into right here. This is the anchor, actually, that's holding the line close to my body. So if the line gets snagged on something, it'll pull here and not directly from the site. because that has happened before, even with the anchor on, and let me tell you guys, it's really painful. Because you got a cord going into your body, and that's going up to my pump and powering the pump, and it also gives a readout as to what's happening. So I don't know if you guys can see that very well if my camera will focus. For the amount of money I pay for this camera, better focus. There we go. It's telling you how many liters per minute it's pushing through, and it shows how much power it's using, which never really changes. Or no, the RPMs never really change. But that's just giving you a readout of the pump, the functionality of the pump, and you'll be able to detect if anything's wrong. Like if I get a low flow, like if the pump is moving less blood, it'll actually have an alarm on here that notifies me of that. It's not something to be too concerned before, and I have gotten that alarm several times, but usually it's when I'm trying to sleep and I'm super relaxed and it like beeps, it goes do do do. And I'm sitting here trying to sleep, and I'm like, yes, I know, I'm very relaxed, I'm trying to sleep. And it always happens at the point of where I'm like about to fall into like the most beautiful sleep of my life. And then finally it just beeps and it wakes me back up and says, oh, low flow. Sorry, you're trying to relax, but I'm not gonna let you do that. But you just bring it into the doctors and they adjust it so it doesn't do that. But other than that, this thing is what's keeping me alive, you guys. This is my heart right now. This is what my heart is right now. It's a $220,000 heart. That's nothing compared to the transplant. Out of pocket, a transplant is north of $2 million. But this is my VAD, proudly made by Heartware, and it has a variety of functions. If this line right here, this drive line, literally my lifeline is disconnected, it has the most excruciating, painfully loud alarm, and for obvious reasons, to alert you that connection between the pump and the controller, the computer, is lost, and that means that the pump has stopped, which means essentially the blood flow has stopped. I will admit to have unplugging myself to the batteries, unplugging both batteries at the same time. I will admit that I've done that maybe twice, but as soon as I've done it, I realize what I've done and I plug it back in because I can feel the pump stop and I can feel the blood and the air bubbles moving through the tube, and it's a very, very nauseating and very disturbing feeling, and I'm sure I'm not going to do that again. But yes, I'm going to answer some of the questions that are already asked. How do I shower with this thing? Because it's permanently attached, well, I kind of just hang it outside of the shower. I put it in a little basket outside of my shower and kind of close the door onto the cord, not slam it on here to damage the cord, but just to close it and protect it from water, and I shower. I can sleep with this thing. It's very versatile. It usually sits in a satchel-like bag, but mostly I've been carrying it around in my Nike backpack. You'll see plenty of pictures of that on my Instagram account, you guys. And it's really cool. It's a really cool device, and I can't believe I was so afraid to have this put in me, but I think it's really cool, and I'm really happy that, just a time to be alive, that this technology exists, and I can't imagine what we're gonna have, 10, 20 years down the road from now, and hopefully I'm a part of that, being a part of that advancement in technology to something that saves lives. I can't wait to see, what the future holds, but yeah, I can sleep with this thing because it sits in a bag and I just sit it off to the side and go to sleep. I'd say that my first couple of weeks, I found myself getting tangled like crazy with this thing because I would have my laptop and my phone that was charging and my computer was charging, and I would be all sorts of messed up. I would be like tangled up, and it was a mess and it was embarrassing. But other than that, you guys, this thing is... I've become so used to this thing that it's become routine, and it's like it's never there. And when I tell people about this, they're actually quite fascinated. I don't think I've really run into anybody who's given me a weird look or given me some sort of attitude because it's a little bit different. And I guess maybe that's just because of my location in the Northeast, but I've continue to receive amazing support from people. And I've even gotten in touch with other people who have a device like this, who I can like actually relate to and just talk to. And I've been so motivated, you guys. I've been more motivated, and I can't wait to see what the future has in store for AJ. And I'm gonna try to wrap it up because I know this video is gonna be a long one. But I really wanted to just share this, this story with you guys. And I know you guys know about my heart condition, but I never really took the time to go in depth and talk about the details and, really exactly everything that I experienced. And the point I'm trying to make is, guys, look, I'm right here. I'm right here with a smile on my face because I'm doing more than I have in a long time. I'm applying for graduate school. I started another business. I'm up to my neck in work. I'm busy all the time, but I love it, and I love you guys too. If you guys follow me on Snapchat, I always try to put that up every single night, that message that I love you all, because you guys, tomorrow isn't guaranteed for any of us. It's not guaranteed for me. And we've actually had people in our town recently who have passed away, people that I knew, that I went to school with and played sports with. They passed away. And that's just further proving that tomorrow's not guaranteed for anyone. So you guys need to live like you gotta live like there's nothing, like, I can't even get the words out. You just gotta live, you guys. You gotta see what you're capable of. You gotta discover your potential. You have to get out there, you guys. You have to find your passion, and you have to have a purpose. I can't really put into words what my purpose is, but I know for a fact that I'm on track to being the most successful version of myself, the most confident version of myself, and I'm not going to just do that alone. I'm going to try to motivate you guys to do that. So even with things beyond fitness, whether it's school, your social life, anything that you are passionate about, what are you doing to set yourself apart from the masses? What are you doing to ensure your success, to ensure your place in the universe of success? What are you guys doing? So that's my story. I'm really hoping that I can really get back onto schedule with the YouTube videos, and I'm just getting the low battery indicator on my camera now, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Instagram, @FitnessWithAJ, Snapchat, ajFitness. I love talking to you guys. I love connecting with you guys, and I can't wait to see how we take on the world together.